In a move that has sparked both praise and condemnation, the Trump administration has implemented a sweeping change to the landscape of social welfare in America. The new policy mandates a 30-hour workweek for individuals seeking to receive SNAP benefits, commonly known as food stamps, and Section 8 housing assistance. This bold move signals a departure from previous administrations and places work requirements at the forefront of the national conversation on poverty and government assistance. Proponents of the policy argue that it promotes self-sufficiency and reduces reliance on government handouts. They contend that requiring work as a condition of receiving benefits encourages individuals to enter the workforce and become contributing members of society. By tying benefits to employment, the administration aims to incentivize work and reduce the burden on taxpayers. Critics, however, express deep concern about the potential consequences of such a stringent policy. They argue that it disproportionately impacts vulnerable populations, such as the elderly, disabled individuals, and those struggling to find stable employment. Opponents of the policy fear that it will push already struggling families further into poverty and exacerbate existing inequalities. The implementation of this new policy marks a significant shift in the social safety net, with potentially far-reaching implications for millions of Americans. As the policy takes effect, its impact on individuals, families, and communities across the nation remains to be seen. The announcement of the 30-hour work requirement has ignited a firestorm of debate across the country, revealing a deep chasm in public opinion. Supporters of the policy, many of whom reside in conservative circles, applaud the Trump administration for taking a firm stance against what they perceive as widespread government dependency. They argue that the policy promotes personal responsibility and will ultimately lead to a stronger workforce. On the other side of the aisle, liberals and advocates for low-income families express outrage and despair. They argue that the policy is cruel and short-sighted, failing to address the complex realities faced by those struggling to make ends meet. Many fear that the policy will result in increased poverty, hunger, and homelessness. Social media platforms have become battlegrounds for this heated debate, with hashtags like Work for Benefits and Protect the Poor trending nationwide. Rallies and protests have erupted in cities across the country, with citizens taking to the streets to voice their support or opposition to the policy. The issue has become a lightning rod for broader discussions about the role of government, the nature of poverty, and the values of American society. While the policy debate rages on, the true impact of the 30-hour work requirement is most acutely felt in the daily lives of individuals and families across the nation. For some, the policy represents a hurdle they are determined to overcome. Take, for instance, Sarah, a single mother of two who relies on SNAP benefits to put food on the table. Despite juggling multiple low-wage jobs, Sarah struggles to meet the new work requirements. The added pressure of finding additional hours weighs heavily on her, casting a shadow of uncertainty over her family's future. For others, the policy presents an insurmountable barrier. John, a disabled veteran suffering from chronic pain, relies on both SNAP and Section 8 assistance to survive. Unable to work full-time due to his disability, John faces the agonizing prospect of losing the support he desperately needs. His story, unfortunately, is not unique. Across the country, seniors living on fixed incomes, individuals battling chronic illnesses, and those caring for young children or disabled family members find themselves caught in the crosshairs of this new policy. For these vulnerable populations, the 30-hour work requirement is not a path to self-sufficiency but a roadblock to basic necessities. To fully grasp the potential impact of the 30-hour work requirement, it is essential to examine the statistics surrounding SNAP and Section 8 participation. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, over 40 million Americans rely on SNAP benefits to supplement their food budgets. Of these, a significant portion are children, seniors, and individuals with disabilities. The center also reports that nearly 5 million low-income households rely on Section 8 vouchers to afford safe and stable housing. These numbers underscore the vast scale of need across the country and the potential consequences of implementing such a stringent work requirement. While the Trump administration argues that the policy will encourage work and reduce dependency, critics point to the fact that many SNAP and Section 8 recipients already work but struggle to find full-time employment or earn a living wage. They argue that the policy fails to address the root causes of poverty and will likely result in more families falling through the cracks. Section 5. Shadows of doubt. Are benefits being abused? One of the driving forces behind the push for stricter work requirements is the persistent belief that government assistance programs are rife with abuse. Stories of individuals fraudulently obtaining benefits or using them to fund lavish lifestyles fuel public resentment and bolster support for policies aimed at cracking down on perceived misuse. While instances of fraud do occur, studies have consistently shown that they are relatively rare. The vast majority of SNAP and Section 8 recipients rely on these programs as a lifeline, not a lifestyle choice. However, the perception of widespread abuse persists, shaping public opinion and influencing policy decisions. This disconnect between perception and reality underscores the need for accurate information and nuanced conversations about the complexities of poverty and the challenges faced by those struggling to make ends meet. Section 6. A system under strain. The implementation of the 30-hour work requirement comes at a time when the social safety net is already stretched thin. Years of funding cuts and policy changes have eroded the capacity of government agencies to effectively administer assistance programs and provide adequate support to those in need. The influx of new applicants seeking to comply with the work requirement further strains an already overburdened system. Caseworkers face overwhelming workloads, processing applications and verifying employment status. Long lines and bureaucratic hurdles become the norm, creating frustration and hardship for both recipients and those tasked with administering the programs. The strain on the system also raises concerns about the potential for errors and inconsistencies in the application of the work requirement. Without adequate resources and support, there is a risk that deserving individuals and families will be denied assistance due to bureaucratic snafus or misinterpretations of the policy. Section 7. Echoes of past policies. The 30-hour work requirement is not the first attempt to tie government assistance to employment. In the 1990s, President Bill Clinton signed into law welfare reform legislation that imposed time limits and work requirements on recipients of cash assistance. While the policy was lauded by some for reducing welfare rolls and encouraging work, it also faced criticism for pushing families into deeper poverty and doing little to address the root causes of economic hardship. The Trump administration's new policy can be seen as an extension of this earlier effort, expanding work requirements to a broader range of assistance programs. However, the context in which these policies are being implemented is vastly different. The current economic climate, characterized by stagnant wages, rising costs of living, and a lack of affordable housing, presents significant challenges for individuals seeking to enter or re-enter the workforce. Section 8. Navigating the labyrinth of need. For those struggling to navigate the complex web of government assistance programs, the 30-hour work requirement adds another layer of complexity. Navigating the application process, verifying employment status, and meeting reporting requirements can be daunting, especially for individuals with limited literacy skills, language barriers, or lack of access to technology. The burden of compliance often falls on those least equipped to handle it, creating frustration, confusion, and a sense of hopelessness. Community organizations and advocacy groups play a crucial role in helping individuals understand the new requirements and access the resources they need to comply. However, these organizations are often understaffed and under-resourced, struggling to meet the increased demand for their services. The success or failure of the 30-hour work requirement hinges not only on the willingness of individuals to work, but also on the capacity of the system to provide adequate support and guidance. Section 9. A crossroads for social welfare. The implementation of the 30-hour work requirement marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing debate about the role of government in addressing poverty and inequality. The policy reflects a shift away from traditional notions of social welfare as a safety net for those in need toward a more conditional approach that emphasizes personal responsibility and work as the primary pathways out of poverty. The long-term consequences of this policy shift remain to be seen. Will it lead to increased employment and self-sufficiency, as proponents hope, or will it exacerbate existing inequalities and push vulnerable populations further into poverty, as critics fear? The answer likely lies somewhere in between. What is certain is that the 30-hour work requirement will have a profound impact on the lives of millions of Americans, shaping the landscape of social welfare for years to come.